a fine word from the audio reporter. Thank you for being here. It is a big treat for me, and I think all of us, to have with us 5 people so central to this movie. I'm going to bring them out one by one to begin with the casting director, the great Francine Maisler.
I didn't know that was him. I compliment upon him.
Next from cast, please welcome Odessa Young. Next, the first of our 2 Jeremys, Jeremy Strong.
Great job.
Followed by Jeremy Allen White. And last but not least, please welcome the writer, director, and producer, Scott Cooper.
Coming out on Wednesday night. I love seeing a packed theater. It means so much to me.
Great to see you all. Congrats. Tonight's a big night for this film and for all of you. And I thought maybe a place we could begin is to just go back a bit, and if you could each perhaps share what relationship, if any, you had to Bruce Springsteen, his music, all of it prior to this project. We'll pick it up from your involvement after.
Yeah, very easy for me. My father, who kind of helped shape all of my early musical influences, jazz, bluegrass, classic country, opera, he introduced me to Bruce Springsteen through Nebraska. And I was a disaffected teenager, wasn't quite sure of his place in the world, and that album came into my life, and I understood it immediately. It's an album that I listened to probably more than any album. I've written 2 films while listening to that, Out of the Furnace being one of my second film. And to be making a film about that all these years later, it feels like it's really come full circle. And my father, to whom I've dedicated the film, died the day before I started shooting the movie. So his spirit kind of carried me up to, well, this point.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Yeah, my knowledge of Bruce. I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the early '90s, and so I had a knowledge and admiration, for Bruce Springsteen, and I knew of his long performances, but I'd never seen him perform live. I knew the radio hits. I might call myself a casual fan. But I don't remember a time I didn't know his name. I don't remember a time I didn't know what he looked like. But yeah, my understanding was distant, I guess, of Bruce in the beginning. I was a fan of his, but I felt I guess far away, and then we got very close.
To be continued, Jeremy Strong.
Yeah, not dissimilar from Jeremy. I did know Nebraska really well. That was sort of the one album that I knew really well. I heard it in college, and it was a sort of talismanic album for me. And the kind of starkness of it, the melancholy of it, what felt like the authenticity of it. And my best man play a song of his at my wedding. But apart from that, I think I had sort of, in a way, maybe like a lot of people, misperceptions of the magnitude of the artist that Bruce is. I think I thought about Bruce sort of, the way that Born in the USA was misappropriated by Reagan and made into this sort of anthemic, jingoistic, patriotic anthem, and it's really an anti-war song about veterans. And part of this process has been, as an actor, you get granted access into these worlds, and this incredible discovery process of just the wingspan of Bruce's work, the depth of his work, just the depth of his soul as an artist, how deep a life and how embodied a life his work comes from.
Thank you. Odessa, over in Australia, was he on your radar early on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Was he ever? I was born into a Bruce Springsteen house. Like every member of my family has their own personal relationship with his music, and there was never a time that I don't remember knowing his music and being forced to learn all the lyrics. But I loved Bruce very much. My 15th and 16th birthdays were at Bruce Springsteen concerts, and he was on. I actually haven't said this once during this entire press trip. My 16th birthday cake was his face.
We gotta find those photos.
I know, my mom's been texting me every day going, I'm still looking, I'm so sorry. Yeah, big fan.
Francine?
Okay, I'm gonna tell the story again, because I think it's a good one. I'm a Jersey girl. Okay, so whenever Scott calls, I don't need to read the script, I just say yes, whether I'm available or not. Let me just say that, okay? I'm available for Scott. So I'm a Jersey girl. So there was a scene at the Stone Pony, and I don't tend to go to sets. I'm usually busy with my children or little time. But I decided, go to Stone Pony, be there. This is an opportunity. So I walk in, and Stone Pony's small, and open the door, and Bruce Springsteen's just walking right by me. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta leave. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you must understand, I was in the nosebleed seats when I would see Bruce Springsteen. I was never close. I mean, I would cross the highway. I parked over there, had to cross the highway. Just to set this up. And so some people were asking Bruce for pictures with them. Right? I couldn't do that. No. I mean, people were saying, it's okay, he's just the loveliest man. You can ask for your pet. I was like, no. And then a couple hours later, I thought, what am I doing? Like, there's this chance to show off to my kids, just one picture. Maybe they'll be impressed. And then I thought, okay. So I asked Bruce's, so there's the monitor, okay? And behind the monitor is Steven Spielberg, Bruce Springsteen, and Scott. So
No pressure on Jeremy.
Happy day. Yeah.
So
Francine was there.
So I say to Scott's wife, okay, no, I can't take the picture. But if I stand behind the three of you, could you take a picture of me? And then it would seem like I met Bruce. And that's what I did.
That's good. Well, Scott, I think for decades people have been hoping Bruce would make a movie, cooperate with a movie, and that was not the case. Why do you think the time had come where he was going to be open to that, and why, once it did, of all the chapters in this amazing life, why do you think this is the one that he also wanted to be the one that's highlighted?
Because I think it's his most personal. It's certainly his most enduring record. If you read Bruce Springsteen's wonderful autobiography, Born to Run, most every chapter is quite lengthy of Bruce's life. But when he gets to the chapter of the making of Nebraska, it's a page or a page and a half only. And he said to me, because it was too painful for him to do that kind of deep excavation work where you have to really go down where it hurts the most. And Bruce is a cinephile. He had seen all my films, some of them a few times, and I think it's at a time in his life, 75 years old at the time, where he felt, if I'm ever going to make a film about my life, then it should be Nebraska, and it just happened to be me. He said something to me that I will never forget. He said, Scott, the truth about yourself isn't always pretty. I want you to tell the truth about me. And when I was writing the script, when I was shooting the script and when I was editing the script, he said, "You have to promise me that you're going to give me a Scott Cooper movie. Don't let the audience off the hook. No, bless you, no spectacle, no gloss." And I said, "Bruce, I am going to make the film just like you made Nebraska. No minimalist, startup, no gloss, no spectacle, and the camera will not look away." And Bruce Springsteen has seen the film now, I think, well, I was going to say 12 times.
Seen it 13 right now.
But right now, he's
Wow.
watching it at the Chinese theater
That's
for
amazing.
the 13th time.
And I'll just say, I mentioned this to you at the Telluride Film Festival where you guys had your premiere, that it was a pretty big thrill for a meeting. I interviewed him a few months before this movie showed because he had a new documentary, and I went to New Jersey, and all he could keep talking about was how excited he was and impressed he was with what you guys were doing. And Odessa, your ears should have been ringing. He said, you know these guys, but this is that you would really pop for him as well. So anyway, I just think that it's interesting because you've said that he then cooperated or was resource for you during the writing, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was, look, my perspective, of course, somewhat selfishly, is you can only read so many biographies and autobiographies and watch so many interviews on YouTube, right? But to really understand Bruce Springsteen's state of mind, his psychology, you really have to spend time with him. Warren Zanes' book that I adapted was the basis. But I really wanted to get under the hood of who Bruce Springsteen was. And I really felt like when I pitched him the movie that if we understood Bruce in these few months of his life, that we would really understand Bruce at large, maybe more so than we ever would in a cradle-to-grave narrative. Now, it's very different for Jeremy White and Jeremy Strong to have Bruce Springsteen and John Landau on the set. Thankfully, these are two of the best screen actors working, but how was that, guys?
Yeah, it was a little different for us, I guess. I spent a fair amount of time with Bruce before we got on set, and I wish I'd spent more with him. He keeps talking about it. I didn't ask him enough. I didn't want to bother him, But he was so available and he was so generous, and I found like a couple things to run with, and then I ran. And when he was on set, I was very much, appreciative of his support, but I was head down. I was kind of separate, especially in that first week or so. I think I was just trying to figure it all out, and I think I was concerned at that time that he was there to critique or something. And over time, I realized that it wasn't about that at all. I think he got a lot of joy from being on set, from watching Scott, and from watching us, and I think his presence was really just one of support, and I think him and Scott spoke a lot. I would kind of go to him at the end of the day, and depending on the day, and give him a hug or a nod, and then many days he would send me messages, after he'd been on set, and he would send me messages of support, whether it be on that day with Spielberg and Francine at the Stone Pony where I was performing, 4 songs, or if it was something really simple, like the way I looked at a server kind of like pass by while I was sitting with Jeremy in a diner. But those things really carried me. It was so important to me to have Bruce's blessing and to try and do him justice. My admiration for him has just grown and grown, and continues to grow. The closer I get to him and the more I understand him.
One of the things, because this is a room, so many of us are actors here. When I think before we were inside of this thing, before we had done all the work and the preparation and whatever it is you need to do to give yourself a sense of belief and be able to walk onto any given set. Before that time, the idea of Bruce and John being there would have been paralyzing. And I think once you do all that work and you are inside of it, you have to, as an actor, be so invested in the imaginary circumstances and in the stakes of what's happening that everything else kind of disappears, including Bruce Springsteen and John Landau. I think if we had been aware of their presence, we would have been in real trouble. They're there in the sense in the back of our minds, but as Jeremy said, you know, it was like, you know, giving us 10 fingers just in service of what we were trying to do. And you know, Bruce also, he's a real film, you know, John, first of all, was, apart from being the music critic for Rolling Stone, he was also the film critic for Rolling Stone before he started working with Bruce. And Bruce, you know, the first 5 minutes I met Bruce, we were talking about, like, I think True Confessions, right? Duvall and De Niro is that Bruce word? Yeah. Anyway, he deeply loves film. And he told me last week in London that it was De Niro's work that inspired him to become the musician that he wanted to become. It was seeing this guy working with a level of rigor and a level of intensity and a level of commitment that he wanted to embody in music. I mean, he would have done that anyway, but so he loves and appreciates acting, and I think, yeah, it was just an incredible gift to have those guys around, and to also kind of all of us collaborate and co-author a lot of what's in this film with them.
But if I could just quickly add that, you know, the Pope could have walked on set, but, and I suppose for some people Bruce is, but Jeremy White and Jeremy Strong are so locked in, they're so focused on set that they work with such precision and such command of their craft that even Bruce Springsteen can be there and not really be bothersome.
Yeah. Well, we know that Bruce is thrilled with this and with Jeremy Allen White's portrayal. I want to also note what John Landau recently said about Jeremy Strong. Well, let me tell you something. If you're used to being behind the scenes and then going out in front in a film, who would imagine that you'd wind up with Jeremy Strong playing you in the film? It's an honor to have an artist of that caliber commit to interpreting you and spend the amount of time and effort that he did in doing it. He's got the speech, the cadence, the rhythm, the walk. He's got whatever it is that makes me, close quote, which is pretty great as well. Now, I want to turn to Odessa and just ask you, there was something that these guys could do that unfortunately wouldn't have been possible. It's not an option for you to reach out and talk to Bruce or John. There isn't a real Faye, right? She's a composite. Can you talk about the kind of pros and cons of playing someone who's not necessarily there?
Well, the pros are that I'm used to it. I knew that Scott and Bruce had had many conversations about who Faye needed to be to best represent that time in Bruce's life. So I knew that there was kind of these details of truth, these people that they had talked about, no one person specifically, but just kind of what he was going through with some of the people in his life at that time. So it wasn't entirely a fabrication, and I certainly didn't feel like I had to fabricate anything. It was all very much in Scott's script, which is the most that you can ask for anyway, even if you are playing a real person. And yeah, I think, you know, there were a couple of things that I really loved about Faye, like the fact that she was once a circus showgirl, which is a real person that Bruce knew. And I liked the fact that she had had a failed relationship that left her a single mother to a child. So these things I kind of, yeah, you take them, and as Jeremy said, you know, he found these things in his conversations with Bruce and he ran, and I kind of took them and ran, and it's kind of all you can do.
Yeah. Francine, these guys are surrounded by a huge ensemble of great actors who we know, the Stephen Grahams of the world and people like that, but also people that, you know, I don't know too many of us would have had a chance to encounter before, including, I think, probably a pretty pivotal one is young Bruce, played by Matthew Anthony Pellicano Jr. I want to ask you, you mentioned having worked with Scott in the past and built up this relationship. So it goes Black Mass, Hostiles, The Pale Blue Eye. I guess did those prior collaborations, how did those inform, like did you kind of know what he would be looking for in filling out the cast before you even spoke about it?
Scott is just the most wonderful director, especially with actors. He's a, as they say, an actor's director. He wants something authentic, truthful, and you don't feel like you're watching a performance. So through all these films, we've become friends, and we have the same taste, and I know what he wants. I just have to go do the work and present it to him. So little Michael, who's in the Tom Brown suit right now at the other movie, we put out a casting call. And the thing about casting directors is we have to go through so many to just find one gem. And here was this little boy from New Jersey who'd never done anything. And the thing about Scott as a director is he sees it and he knows. And I find what was interesting about the process is what Scott did. So Michael auditioned, and Scott saw him and saw something in him. And Michael's callback was, there were prompts from Scott, but he didn't want him to use any words. So, for example, would be, you're looking at your father with both love and fear. And Scott, do you want to speak to that? And I mean, it was about 5 of those prompts, and then after that, you knew. And
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of children actors, child actors, and so often the ones that come to auditions, you never know if they want to be there or if their parents dream. And so often when you try to give them direction, they can't quite take it. They can take it from their mom and dad, but not from you, and that's going to be a real problem on set. So I try to find kids who've never wanted to be actors, who've never seen a film camera, who can give really unadulterated, very honest and truthful performances. And Matthew was certainly that. I knew that he could show Bruce's soulful innocence when we did these exercises non-verbally, because I try to strip as much dialogue away from every actor in every scene. Whether it's Matthew Pellicano Jr. or Jeff Bridges or Robert Duvall. Less, make it more about behavior, less about my ability as a screenwriter. But for those of you here who are directors or producers, I urge you to beg Francine Maisler to cast your films.
Just to say, one of the things about Scott, because he is a writer-director, and he's very much, he has a very firm command of what he's doing and what he wants and executing that vision. But the thing that makes him an actor's director is the latitude that he gives all of us on set, the freedom that he allows us, the container that he creates, which is incredibly permissive. And these guys have heard me talk about this, but one of the days that meant the most to me, the scene where Landau goes to see Bruce in Colt's Neck in the bedroom before he goes on the cross-country trip, there was a beautifully scripted scene, and I had an instinct, that I could play him a song. And Bruce and John used to listen to records together in the early 70s, and it's kind of their love language in a way, and how they communicate. And I texted Bruce and John saying, I have this idea, what song would I play? And Landau said, no, it's not a good idea, you shouldn't play a song, and I would play a song. And I was like, well, I'm John Landau, you're not John Landau. Bruce, what song should I play? And I asked Bruce, I said, what song would you play if you we're trying to save your friend's life. And he sent a couple ideas, and maybe an hour later, he sent this Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers song. And this is all to say, you know, Bruce offered this up. It came from a deep, deep part of him. And then, you know, I went to Scott. We shot the scene. I asked sound department to prepare this song on the tape, and you know, you don't tell anybody. It's better to ask forgiveness than to ask permission sometimes. But I went up to Scott after we shot the scene and said, "Do you mind if I try something? It's a bit of a big thing." And he said, "Sure. You want to tell me what it is?" "Nah, can I just try it? I don't know if it's going to work." He said, "Sure," without hesitating. "Jeremy, do you want to know? I want to try something. Do you want to know what it's going to be?" "No, let's just do it and see what it is." And you know, that's the kind of filmmaking, especially on a studio movie like this. It's like Scott made this movie. That's the way in which, to me, Scott made this movie like Bruce made Nebraska, which is a kind of unflinching search for truth and veracity and allowing that to occur. So yeah, thank you, Scott.
If I could just add, for those of you here who are producers or directors, beg Jeremy White, Jeremy Strong, and Odessa Young to be in your movies.
Can I say one thing?
Please.
And I have worked on a lot of movies, but I'm so proud that my name is on this movie with these three actors. I don't want to take up too much time, but truly, well, Jeremy Strong, who you all know is a very dedicated actor, but I don't know if you know, Jeremy is somebody who's the only actor who's ever thanked me when he's won an award, of all the people that have gone on to win Oscars and Best Supporting. So he made my kids very proud, which is very hard. This young lady is, I mean, when you did your audition, it just blew us all away, and we knew, and just kept looking, but always knew it was her, and she's very selective about what she takes, and you know, she's gonna go on to do just amazing stuff. And Jeremy, you don't know this, but if this is one thing I keep telling myself, but when Jeremy, before even Shameless, Jeremy was out there auditioning, and I saw this young actor who hadn't done anything, and I thought, God, he reminds me of like Sean Penn or something, but I'm not sure. He's kind of got a different look, and I learned that you have to trust your instincts, because, you know, these three are the next generation you're going to see. These two are already in Aaron Sorkin, Social Reckoning. Am I supposed to say that?
Yeah.
Oh.
And for those of you who don't know, this is not the only film that Francine cast this year. She did such a remarkable job casting Sinners.
Yes.
And the upcoming Jim Brooks movie, and probably some I'm not even thinking of. So thank you, Francine.
Thank you, Francine.
So I'm being given the rap sign, but I want to close by asking you, this can be a 2 or 3, whatever word answer, but what, you don't have to even explain it. What for you is the Bruce song that means the most to you? Scott?
My Father's House.
Okay.
Reason to Believe.
You know what? Today, Nothing Man.
Okay.
Drive all night.
Wow.
I think My Father's House.
Well, congrats to you guys, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Awesome. Great job.